Can't hear me. Hello. Hi, I'm Lizzie. I'm on tech programs and events, and I plan cool things like this here at Google. So I just want to say welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for being here. I just want to run through a few housekeeping items before we get started. Just so you know that the restroom is out this door down the hall if you need to use it. And then we also have more beverages and food in the back, so make sure you guys go back there during the talk. And then after Anand's talk, we're going to move back out here for some more networking and a reception for about a half an hour. And then, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Anand, the site lead for Bangalore. We give him a little applause.
Yeah, again, thanks a lot for coming. So the talk is Return to India. And I'm the site lead for Bangalore. Jay Kota is the site lead for Hyderabad, and he was not able to make it today. But you should feel free to reach him if you're particularly interested in anything related to Hyderabad. Even though the talk says Return to India, I hope many of you have not come here with your 500 rupee and 1,000 rupee notes. You can return those to India through me. I am going back. I'm not here to collect them. This is like you folks physically returning to India we're talking about. Yeah, so some of you probably are aware of this event which happened, and it's had a lot of repercussions for the last 3 weeks. It's going to have more. But this is sort of the thing in India right now with respect to news. So I want to tell you up front that this is an information session. Okay, I am neither trying to sell you India nor Google. Hopefully, those two will sell each other independently, and they don't need help. If they do, we have bigger problems. But you're probably aware of many things about Google. You probably use lots of Google products, right? And is there anyone here who's never been to India? Okay, so. But is there anyone here who's not been to India in, say, last 2 years? Anyone? Okay. Yeah, so I'll start with a self-intro, and then we'll get on with this, just so you know what is my background, how do I form my opinions, and my way of thinking. So I finished my bachelor's from IIT Madras and moved and came here for my master's in '96. And Stanford University, Larry and Sergey were my classmates. I made the extremely wise decision not to join Google very early, and then I continued in computer networking for a while, and I joined Google in 2008. And I joined Google Mountain View in 2008. In Mountain View, I worked on Gmail and YouTube, and I led some teams there. And in 2013, I moved back with my family to Bangalore. Me, my wife, and my two kids who were aged 5 and 2 at that point, right? By that time, by 2013, I'd already spent 17 years in the Bay Area. I actually don't know US. I know the Bay Area. So I don't particularly understand the election result because I only know the Bay Area. But I can totally relate to some of your experiences after living here and what it means to move back. And I will also tell you that during this period, I probably visited India every year and a half. And visiting is one thing, living there is one thing, and living there more than 5 years before is one thing, and living there now is very different. So some of you, if you have like older impressions of India, might actually get culture shocks when you go to India today. So I just want to be very upfront about this. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm not trying to sensationalize. The truth is that India is transforming majorly in many ways. So with that, we'll start. The agenda will be that I first tell you a little bit about where is India going, and then about Google, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. And then we will talk about basically life in India, not just working in Google. Okay? Yeah, so I'm sure there'll be lots of questions like, why did you move? How much money will I make in India? The lots of questions in your mind. I will just ask you to hold on till I finish this thing, and then we will do very comprehensive Q&A, and I'll be very candid in this whole thing. Okay. So basically, like that white circle there has more humans than everything outside, right? China, India, Indonesia, unbelievable population densities. And this thing is not well appreciated. If you think about it, I mean, it's a really small circle with respect to surface area. But there are more people who live in that area than outside, right? So APAC is really an amazing place if you like humans, right? If you like nature, you probably should prefer that pole or this pole. But if you like humans, this is a good place to be, right? Now, India itself, right? India has always had a large number of humans, right? But it's becoming a very interesting market right now. We have a very strong growing internet base, and you can see from the number of like phones which are capable of getting on the internet, number of smartphones, number of users who are using internet only for messaging, and number of people who are using for browsing, for doing commerce, for selling things. And by many estimates, we expect more smartphone users in India than US by 2018. Total population of US is 330 million. I mean, we would have more smartphone users in India by then, right? This is the kind of statistic which is very hard to digest. I mean, we've never seen anything like at the cutting edge of technology be bigger in India than in US. Population is by far the one thing we always beat US in, but beyond that, it's almost impossible to see some key technology reach India in such mass numbers, right? And this is happening at a very, very fast pace. This has happened in a very short time too. So that opens up so many opportunities. Like all of us have been so used to when we were growing up trying to basically wave down an auto and ask, hey, are you coming to, I don't know, Menlo Park? Obviously, there are no autos here, but just pardon me with this thing. Right, and the auto will either like say, no, or just drive away or something. I say, okay, you need to give me this much and things like that, right? Like just the fact that you have a phone, a smartphone, where you know where you are, you communicate that information to a person, you communicate the intent of where you want to go to a network of people. They don't need to waste time trying to talk to people who are going to interested in going to places they are not going, right? This type of capability makes things like Uber, Ola possible. This is the kind of things which makes people in India, right, resort to these services much more easily, and they're ready to pay a little bit of premium for it as well, right? And I'm saying that the kind of opportunities which the smartphone thing opens is really amazing. The second thing is Google's core products are very popular in India. Play Store, Android, as many of you know, is extremely popular. Chrome is very popular. YouTube is extremely popular. Gmail, I mean, the popularity of all these products is high, and so is it in US, right? So it's nothing new there. But what is important is that in many other places of the world, like say Russia or Korea, there are local competitors which have a much bigger say, right? And if you take China, for example, Google doesn't have a big play in many of the important products. But India is very unique in that all the things which are happening in US where these products are first, it's happening in India too, right? And this is not to be taken for granted, is my point. That it's not obvious at all that being in APAC, obviously, I mean, if you don't have companies which are there, which are building these products, you should obviously use the US equivalent. That's not true. And the third is, the amount of love for the Google brand in India is very high. There's a lot of trust in that brand. Generally, if you give good answers to questions, you build credibility, and search is the best way you can do that. So that is very well. And in India, generally, KOF, has anyone heard KOF? It's a common term which is used for key opinion formers. These people, how do they make decisions? How do they form opinions? And the global scores for Google are very high in that area. So now we'll get into the aspects of Bangalore and Hyderabad. In general, I'll tell you most of this talk will talk about India, but obviously India is not just one entity. It's a collection of many, many, many cities, towns, tier 3, tier 2, tier 4. The situation in those towns would be different. So I won't get into too much details of sort of Bangalore versus Hyderabad, but if you have other questions on some aspects, I can probably comment on it. I've not lived in Hyderabad, but I visited a few times, and I will try to answer based on my background, or I'll defer to Jay, to whom you can ask these questions. So the important thing in tech, right, in India, the thing you have to know is that in US also there's a big polarization of tech concentration in cities, right? If you go to an Idaho, you'll probably find a few software companies. If you go to New Orleans, you might find, but you will find a whole lot of them in Silicon Valley, right? And this is exactly the thing which happens in India too, that Bangalore is the Silicon Valley of India. Now, if you're in tech, there are only 6 cities in India which contribute to many of these 3 factors, right? I'm sort of going to consider NCR a city, National Capital Region. It includes both Gurgaon, Delhi, Noida, that region. So we refer to it NCR as one. We have Bangalore, we have Hyderabad, we have Mumbai, we have Pune, and we have Chennai. Just 6. And what is amazing is if you look at things like IT exports, new startups, amount of tech talent which is going to those areas, these things add up to somewhere around 95%. Right? These 6 cities, that's it. And what is also amazing is in these 6 cities, if you see, Bangalore is significantly ahead in many of these numbers. And then you have a slew of things in some of the areas, like in new startups. 24% of new startups now are in NCR, which was not the case. So NCR suddenly had a big growth in new startup culture. And if you look at IT exports, things like Pune and Chennai are contributing a lot more than say an NCR is contributing, right? And tech talent, again, the Silicon Valley here, even though it's got a few good universities, people from all kinds of parts of US come here, right, after their graduation, like probably many of you. And this is true in Bangalore too. Bangalore, the most interesting university there is IISc, where we get some talent from, but a lot of our talent comes from IITs, triple ITs, which are all elsewhere, BITS Pilani, NITs, all kinds of colleges, right? The projects wise, so I'm going to talk about few of these project areas. There are going to be terms here which you don't understand. We tried to go a little deeper so you actually have some more material instead of talking very generically. But if you ask me more details about some of these things, I won't be able to talk in great detail because these are Google proprietary pieces of information. So if you ask me things about adoption of some of these, how many customers, how big is it, how big is the code base, I won't be able to talk much about it. But I'll tell you broadly about what the goal we are trying to achieve in some of the projects in India, right? So the first thing is there is this thing called G Suite. And G Suite is sort of just rebranding of Google Apps. We basically find a bunch of productivity apps which we have built for consumers, for users, and we are doing the same thing for companies. So what we have observed is if you're very happy with your Gmail at home, you probably would love to have Gmail at work, right? And we sell these products to various companies. And we have lots and lots of companies which are using these products, right from very, very small startups which immediately adopt Google Apps, the G Suite, to very, very big companies like Roche, which have more than 130,000 users, which are all using this product, right? And then obviously Google, with its 65,000 employees, uses these products. We have areas around personalized assistants, docs, all those 6 things which you see are 6 big areas where we try to satisfy users in the enterprise. Okay. Then we have a group called Research and Machine Intelligence, which does more generic work, and then it tries to take that work to other product teams to see whether they can adopt it. And again, in Google, a lot of the research is applied research. There are pockets of research which are fundamental research, but this team itself works very closely with product teams. So, so if there is an area like, say, recurrent neural networks, this team will be using it, trying to improve it, but its goal will be to try to use it for specific products which can benefit from it. Okay. Some of these problems are well understood from the search side, but they probably have applications in ads, in Android, in Play, and this team works in all of those areas. And the third area is Geo. So we have a Maps team there, which basically helps in what is called auto moderation of user comments and controlling spam, abuse information. In general, the use of something like Maps is real only when it is real time and fresh. You need all this data to be very accurate. By far, the hardest problem in Maps is just data integrity. Like, do you trust it or not? Right? It's not like whether you have the most sophisticated algorithms, whether the pathfinding algorithm is like saves like a minute or two for the users. You can even have a very simple algorithm, and most people use it if the data is perfect, right? If the traffic information is perfect. And this team has a big role to play in making Maps high quality. So these are three areas of work in Google Bangalore. In Hyderabad, we have a big team which is working on G Suite as well, but in different areas like identity, security, device management, and analytics. Device management, some of you may know things like MDM, mobile device management. So in general, what we try to do is when we sell our products to enterprises, we try to provide a set of capabilities which every enterprise would like to have for either controlling their devices, users, groups, settings, providing security, providing an identity which can be reused with many other apps. So all those aspects are done by this team. We have a team which is working on the engineering productivity of Gmail, Inbox, and Calendar. How many of you know about Inbox? Inbox is okay, so lots of you know. Inbox is basically another client to manage your email, to work with your time, to work with your tasks, which uses the same Gmail backend. And Gmail, when I talk of Gmail, we often think of the client as the Gmail. And so this team basically, again, works with large scale, trying to make sure that every release is fault-free and basically to catch issues before they hit production. And we have a third team which is focused. So till now, everything which I told you, right, is applicable to everything everywhere in the world. They work on problems, but these problems are applicable to users all over the world. We've started a team to address what are called next billion users, which are addressing issues related to more Southeast Asian, Asia Pacific, and developing nations problems. Like for example, Brazil would be participating in this. Indonesia would be participating in this. India will obviously be participating in these, right? So some of you may have heard terms like BRICS, all these things. So they all figure in this. So the 3 billion growth itself was exponential, but there is a general feeling that after 3 billion, it's going to flatten off because the next set of people, like in Africa, Southeast Asia, are not going to be able to adopt this quickly because of various constraints, poverty being one of them, access and reach being another of them, right? So this team thinks a lot about those types of problems. What is amazing about that billion is that most of them have never seen a PC. Most of them are going to buy their very first computer, which is going to be a phone, right? They're all going to be carrying it. They're all going to be moving around and doing commerce, information, entertainment, everything on the go, right? And we've sort of observed that a good way to understand these markets is to try to develop products for those markets by being in those markets, and that's what we are attempting. We have a big effort headed in Hyderabad towards some of the needs of these people. And the amazing things are, yeah, they're very savvy. They like, they are unique, and the thing is that they have many of the same fundamental needs as people in developed countries. They're very aspirational. They want information. They want entertainment. They want to communicate with people. They want to do commerce. They want to do transactions, all with the ease of the phone. And so they are carrying that identity, their digital electronic identity in their hands, and they want to do all these things, right? Yeah, the aspects around content, around connectivity, around phones, these are hard problems. And so this team is focusing on some of these aspects. So with that, I just want to make it very clear that, in Google India, we are not just a small engineering team with a bunch of engineers. We are fairly full stack. We have engineers doing development. We have engineers doing testing. We have product managers. We have program managers. We have UX designers. The whole stack is in front of you. Interaction engineers, all kinds of things. It is true that majority of the people are engineers in product development, and that's probably true, I mean, in pretty much any company here. But there are openings in all these things. So if you have specific backgrounds or if you have interest in that area, do reach out and we can talk. So I do want to spend a little bit of time to talk about what it means to get into Google and not just Google India, right? Because for all of you who are here, right, your first obstacle is actually getting into Google. And then we can talk about Google India. And the nice thing is that once you get into Google, getting to Google India is trivial, right? So this is how Google works. Hiring at all locations in Google is going through the exact same criteria that we use for hiring people. Like junior engineers, we're looking for coding abilities, programming abilities, good understanding of data structures, algorithms. More senior engineers, we're looking for design capabilities. We're looking for people who can understand trade-offs. We are looking for people who can lead teams, who can work well with other people, who can guide other people, right? For non-ICs, people who want to be managers, we're looking for people who are very hands-on, people who can help other engineers, people who can also roll up their sleeves and jump in when needed. So the requirements of these people change, but at the end of the day, the requirements at a particular level are the same irrespective of which location you are. They go through similar interviews. The hiring committees look at packets. The hiring committees get packets from all over the world. For example, in India, we have interviewed many people who may want to be placed in Zurich, London, or US. And similarly, we've had people here get interviewed to be placed in Google India. So the important thing to note is that since you folks are physically here, you will actually interview with Google employees here. And you will, if you're interested in India, you will get an offer for Google India, right? So that's a very important thing to know. And so just getting into Google is the main bar, because getting into Google India is just getting into Google and then saying that you want to go to India, right? The way to get in general, way to get into the door is through putting your resume potentially in the hands of some Googler who can submit it internally. Certainly applying through google.com/jobs can work. There are a lot of people doing it, as you can imagine. And it's can I take it at the end if you have a question? Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. And so if you know some people like that, you can submit, or you're in this event, you should send your resumes to Gerard afterwards if you're interested in going through the interview rounds. The next thing which I'll tell you is that in general, I mean, if you have interviewed at Google before and you didn't make it, we don't like to re-interview very quickly. Like it'll be at least 6 months before it's even considered, and potentially a year. So if you feel that you didn't do well some earlier time, maybe you want to prepare more, maybe you want to get more guidance from other Googlers, you want to get some help to make sure that you do a good job on the day of the interview. Many of you have done probably very good work in your other companies, and maybe perfectly fine at doing some good work in Google, but that interview day performance really matters. And what I'm saying is not particular to Google; it's true for pretty much any company, right? So the reason I make this point, I stress this point more is you've probably been programming and coding stuff many times. You've been designing, you've been doing product management, but try to brush up on some of these things before you actually come for that interview day. Try to really like make a solid attempt at this thing, and once you do well in the interview, then we can talk about like which particular project and where to get placed and all these things, right? But just try to make sure that you cross that obstacle very well. So some of these places are in Bangalore, are in Hyderabad. The living conditions, the playing conditions, the work conditions in India could be comparable to here, or in some places even better. So I'll tell you this, okay? And this is, and I'm not trying to be sensational or exaggerating. I'm just being very direct here. That many of you who would probably move from here to India will go into big living communities, okay? Which will be sort of like mini USA. You will have all kinds of facilities there. They'll be very clean. The air quality will be very good. You'll get lots of water, air, power, everything. And it's almost like you move to a place from which you can reach India in 5 minutes, which is the door of your community, right? All the things which you're probably getting inside the community, you'll probably not get outside, right? But the reality is that we have communities in both Bangalore and Hyderabad where they're very impressive in how they're furnished, how they're maintained, how much facilities we have. So that is true, right? For example, I mean, many of you probably have broadband internet here. I have fiber to the home in my home in Bangalore, and I get 95 megabits per second. I checked at Google here. I was getting about 65 megabits per second. Down and up. Also, I get 92 megabits per second. And I test with speedtest.net very frequently, and it is just amazing. And this is not something which was possible even 5 years before. ACT and many other FiberNet providers have really laid down fiber, and the backhaul is also pretty good. And this is sort of the new India, right? And this is accessible to upper middle class and upper class people now. The next thing which I'll tell you is that even about 10 years before, right? So everyone knows 1991, okay, Narasimha Rao said India is open for business, right? The liberalization thing, you probably read about these waves, right? But even 10 years before, right, you couldn't walk up to a store. Obviously, you couldn't do it even online because online capabilities were poor at that time. You couldn't buy something like, say, a tricolor pasta or a quinoa, red quinoa in India. People will look like, are you crazy? What is this? We're not like stocking up everything that there's in the world. Today, I mean, I live in a complex and I get out, there's a road nearby, I walk, and there is like a big department store called More, and there's a smaller departmental store called Family Mall, and tricolor pasta is there in both. It's not like I'm particularly keen on it, but I'm saying that, and the point I'm trying to make is that the amount of choice which is available is just astounding. And this is sort of the new India, where access and capabilities are huge. The other thing is, you know, this is something which most of you probably already know, that at some point you could get a phone connection only from the government. You could get cooking gas cylinders only from the government. All of that is now completely gone. You can land in India right now, and you can get private substitutes to all of this, and you can get going. Right? This is sort of, again, the new India where there is enormous choice. And when I say like power, right, you obviously will be getting power from the national grid, but almost every big community has a huge area with DC generators. And there'll be like a 45-second cutoff, which will take for the DC generators to kick in, right? So we still have power challenges in India, but this makes it much simpler. And if you want uninterrupted internet access, everyone has a Wi-Fi router which is attached to a UPS, and now you have uninterrupted access. And I'm saying that, I mean, this is the kind of thing that is possible in India right now for many people like you who would come back. Cost. This is something which comes up. So these numbers, so the first thing which I'll tell you is that the low range and the high range of these can go sway even more. We have picked from actual receipts of people, okay, on both sides with these services, right? The big ticket items, right? You look at things like schooling, right? Childcare, rents, right? The situation in India is that you could be looking at something which is like 8 to 10x cheaper for some of these big ticket items, right? But having said that, I mean, I've said, for example, say the school fees, right? When I say it's from 1 lakh, like 1600 is approximately 1 lakh rupees. By the way, all of you know a lakh is 100,000, right? I'm sort of using the Indian nomenclature. 1 lakh rupees to about 3.5 lakhs, which is pretty luxurious for schools. But you might find schools for like 60,000 rupees, and there are a couple of schools which are like 8.5 lakhs, 9.5 lakhs, which is pretty exorbitant. And that is for the core needs which I'm talking about, right? And I would love for you folks to obviously check this. Please fact check. I'm putting this all out based on data which we have collected from Googlers, from their own experience. When you come down to luxury items, right? Like if you want to go to a California pizza kitchen, you could be looking at almost exact equal things. Like if you get a pizza here for like, say $11, 11 times 68 would be approximately here. You can get a similar pizza probably for like $750 there. 750 rupees there, and you might get pizzas for around 500 rupees there. So it gets pretty equal at some things like that for discretionary spending, and that's why if you look at the movie ticket, right, it is pretty expensive. And when you look at it, it's only 2.5x there, right? Even in the high end. Bag of groceries, bigger gap. And if you look at Uber travel thing, it's significantly cheaper. And travel in India is quite affordable using these other means of transport. Right. So the first thing which I want to tell you in this thing is that the cost gaps are fairly significant for the things which are surely needed, but they may not be as significant as you would expect for the discretionary parts. And when you get a ticker shock, if you get an offer for Google India, when you compare it with your current paycheck here, you may want to remember this when you decide how to compare, how people live there, right? There are challenges. I'm not, like I told you, I'm not here to sell India. I'm not here to sell Google. Some of these challenges still exist. There are ways to address some of these. Some of them are showing some promise, but they exist, and you need to sort of work around them. Finally, I mean, what does it mean to say? What is the environment like, culture like? Many people have asked. It's like, is Google India like completely different from Google Boundary, right? And the only thing which I can tell you is that, you know, there are obviously more Indians in Google India than there are here. More people of Indian origin, right? And we don't have as much diversity internationally, but there is tremendous diversity in the languages people speak, which parts of India they come from, with respect to gender. We have lots of, the percentage of women who are in the office is very high, significantly higher than it's here, right? Those types of diversity, we're doing very well, diversity and inclusion there. We have lots of events, very happy to see the social events in India doing well. What else can I talk about? Yeah, the one advantage I think you will have when you go to India is that you can actually commit yourself to doing not just social service in place, but even helping on the tech side. You can get involved in influencing policy. You can get involved in helping the government on some things. You can help in improving startups. You can, like I'll show you, we have a program called Startup Launchpad where Googlers mentor other people in startups with respect to design, with respect to product management. These kind of opportunities you get. We have been the best place to work in India for more than 5 years. It continues to be the place people want to go to. People leave Google only to either start companies or go to other parts of Google. So Google India is still very, very attractive in general. Some unique perks are that obviously Google India has more Indian food than here. You should expect that. But we also have things, continental food, pizza, pasta, and all these things. We have an interesting service there which is not available here, which is that every person gets picked up in a cab and gets dropped. So for people who are very worried about traffic, oh my God, am I going to be driving in this crazy environment and taking forever? The one advantage you will have is that you will not probably be going through that difficulty. Somebody else would be. And you can use that time to do whatever you want. We also have an international offsite. Teams go off to other parts of Southeast Asia for an offsite, which is another unique perk there. Events in Google India, they're very similar to the events which are happening here. Google here has plenty of authors, speakers, illustrious people come and talk to them about their work, talk inspiringly, talk about life, prosperity, everything. We have similar things happen there too. They're certainly lesser than they happen here, and they are certainly more focused on Indian speakers than international speakers. But we have them. We have things like yoga, Googler to Googler classes. We certainly celebrate Indian festivals very festively. We have big feasts. We decorate the office. We have competitions. We have Golgappe competitions. How many Pani Puris can you eat in a minute? And we have many events like this, right, which are sort of uniquely Indian. Another unique thing which is probably true, not just for Google India, by the way, this is true for many companies in India, which is that we have this thing called Annual Sports Day, even for companies. I don't think it's popular here. And that's an interesting event. And the Startup Launchpad is the thing which I told you, where we pick a bunch of startups in various stages and we go through a week where we help them in various aspects. So that is sort of all the prepared material I had. And I think we're sort of ready for questions. Did you have anything to say, Lizzie? No? Oh, okay, for them, sure. He has a question. Oh, you got one more, yeah. So we'll have mics at places. If you can speak up into the mic, it'll be good for everyone to hear. And I will start giving answers. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be good if you can say just 3 things. Tell your name, which company you're working for right now, and how long you've been in the US.
So my name is Sudarshan. I work for Netflix, and I have been in the US about 13 years now. So one of the main concern I have is
can you speak a little louder?
When you go back to India, you usually end up, let's say, working for Google, Microsoft, or some other big company which has basically a satellite office in India.
Yeah.
So work culture-wise, how did you find that? I usually have the perception from people who work in satellite offices that they get a secondary treatment compared to the ones who work at headquarters.
Yeah.
So how did you find it?
Did everyone hear? Do I have to repeat? No? Okay. So this is a very popular question. So I'll tell you there are 3 types of companies in Bangalore. Okay. There are the companies which were started much earlier, which all address services like Wipro, TCS, Infosys, Cognizant. You've probably heard all of these companies, okay? They hire a class of people to do a particular type of job for various clients, and those clients may be there or in other parts of the world. They'll ship some people there, they'll have people here, they'll work through the clock, all kinds of things. So that's one type of company. There's another type of company is product companies which have set up an office in India for cost arbitrage reasons. Basically, you get very good quality of labor for very cheap. That is how cost arbitrage works, right? And that is the second class of things. There is a third set of companies which have set up an office in India because there is very good talent there which doesn't want to move. And you can guess Google is in which category, okay? The second category has many companies like even things like Oracle, VMware. I've talked to these people in there, and they do grow the Indian arm, like even a Cisco, right? The Cisco arm there is continuing to grow rapidly because the cost of an engineer there is significantly lower than the cost here, and it's possible to do projects at scale there. And once you get into this business of like collecting lots and lots of engineers, right? It's very hard to have a very high bar for quality, right? And once you have so many people, you're obviously going to get projects which can be handled by the people of that quality, right? In Google, so we have Google Bangalore started in 2004. It's been 12 years there, okay? Guess how many people work in Google Bangalore? We have 250 people who work in Google Bangalore. 200 of them are in tech. That's it. If we wanted to be the type 2 company, you could have probably been like now 5,000 people, right? And if you wanted to be type 1, I mean, Google would never be in the type 1 services business. If we wanted to be, obviously, we could be a lot more, right? So and I will tell you that even though the Google quality bar is high, we still find lots and lots of good people who meet that bar. So it's not like we are constrained because of that. So that's the first thing which I want to tell you, that Google is there in Bangalore and Hyderabad because there is fantastic talent there which wants to live there. If it were left to us, I mean, or if in an ideal situation, Google would create a city, like here probably, where everyone who works for Google would be in that city, and they would just interact and live here, right? Which is quite infeasible, right? So people in Google Bangalore, that is the reason why it is there. The second thing which I'll tell you is that the nature of teams, right, in all remote offices, this is how it works. You start with a small team working on a particular problem. That team executes well and builds trust and credibility. It either works closely with some foreign teams or teams in the headquarters, or it works on a problem which is clearly cordoned off that they do. In either case, if they do well, they're rewarded with more, right? With more projects. Now that team grows, and it grows to a point where now it can start setting its destiny. And the way it sets its destiny is often with strong leaders there, either in engineering or product management, to take products forward, to come up with ideas. And in general, we found that when teams grow to like 40, 50 people and have their own product managers, their own UX designers, their own program managers, their own engineers, they have a very high level of autonomy, right? And other than the NBU case, which I said, all other projects are done by people there for the entire world, right? This team, like the commerce team, which I was talking about for G Suite, right? It handles very large $1 million going through them, right? For across the world. So it's far from a second grade activity. It is extremely critical grade activity. If there is a startup here which wants to sign up for Google for the G Suite, a lot of that code goes through people sitting in India. And that is really critical, right? So it's completely untrue on the second grade activity. Now it is true that if you are starting a very small team there, right? If you have like 8 people and you work with like 30 people in New York, you are going to be subservient because, I mean, that the team in New York is setting the cadence, right? But in Google, with the teams which I showed you, they're all very sizable. They all just determine their destiny. They all have leads who are extremely well respected in the motherland here. And having said that, right, people, the other leads and me, like we come here once in 3 months. And a big part of our job is to educate these people on how well we're doing, to make sure that we build the credibility and the trust to keep growing those teams, to keep improving our charters. And we also have our leaders make visits there, and they come like twice a year and come and see our work, do reviews of work there. And that is the way they show confidence in your work. Right? If you have like someone like Sundar come and visit the offices there, it's because he considers it important, both for a market and the office. Right? My VP comes every year. He comes twice a year. He spends a couple of days reviewing work, and it's a small percentage of the total workforce in his division, but he still thinks it's important. And so that's why I'm saying in Google that is completely not true. There might be some truth for a team which is starting, which is very small, just still trying to figure out its identity. At that point, that team will be subservient. But that is how it should be. Right? They learn the ropes, they grow, they show execution, and then they grow up the chain. I hope I've answered the question. These are the two aspects which are important. Yeah. I'll alternate between this side and that side. Just to be fair.
My name is Sayantan. I work for Uber and I've been in the Bay Area for 4 years. So one question related to what you just answered is before the project starts or when the project is forming in that phase, what principles do you use to decide whether that project will live in Mountain View or in India?
Yeah, I hope all of you heard it. Okay.
And a follow-up question related to that is, so then what becomes the mission statement of the India office?
Yeah, so I will tell you the India office as a whole, or India offices, like Bangalore, Hyderabad, we don't have like a common like mission statement which we work with, because there are various groups inside which all map to specific groups. Like I told you, the G Suite group, the Geo group, the Research and Machine, they're all different groups. And they all have their own charters, right? So that part of the India office basically has the same charter as the group which is there. I myself lead a team in G Suite, and the charter which I have maps to my team's thing. And Google is also like many other companies, right? Even though I'm the site lead for Google Bangalore, I do care for the other pieces. I do not get to determine their destiny. They report into other chains and they determine, right? So the thing to understand is that when a new project idea is coming up, right? If it is top down, they will see where expertise is there and how it naturally maps and decide who should work. We've had many projects come up where it is mapped to multiple locations and it works. But if you say initiate an idea there, right? You need to prototype, you need to demo, you need to see if this is viable. Somebody needs to do some research as to whether this could be a product thing. All that works on just initiative. Nobody is controlling it. Like if you are capable enough to do that, you will be rewarded to try it. And you will be given an opportunity either to succeed or fail. I'll need you. Or maybe we don't need it. Never mind. So that is how it works. It is not ordained. But we do have projects which are top down, where somebody identifies this is an important problem and it comes up, and at that point they'll say that, oh, you know what, the commerce team in Bangalore is very capable, or the security team in Hyderabad is very capable to do this. So let's take this piece and this piece will done here and that piece, and then you negotiate, basically. Yeah. So any questions on this side?
Hi, my name is Ajay. I work for Cadence Design Systems. It's a company, we are doing business into building software to ease the process of chip design. And I've been in US for the last 5 years. And my question, I know like you will not be able to disclose a lot of details, but my question is specific to the machine intelligence group there.
Yeah.
That you mentioned. I think it is in Bangalore only. And what I'm interested in knowing, like what kind of work they are doing, how old is the group, and I think Google acquired a company like Boston Dynamics maybe 1 or 2 years back. So what kind of work is going over there? Is it related to robotics or things like that?
Yeah, I'll tell you upfront that in Google India right now, we're not doing anything in robotics. In fact, in many parts of Google here, we're probably not doing anything in robotics. Boston Dynamics is still independent. It's doing its own thing in the area of robotics. Okay. The research and machine intelligence group, which I talked about, it is doing some work in the area of machine intelligence, which can be applied to, say, improving search ranking, improving.
It is mainly supervised and non-supervised learning.
Yeah.
Kind of. Okay.
Of course, we do deep learning. Of course, we do recurrent neural networks as well now.
Okay.
But the way to think about this is we have big infrastructure teams which work on machine learning frameworks, and then we have applied machine intelligence in various other teams. And all the teams in Google, Hyderabad and Bangalore are doing some form of machine learning and some form of machine intelligence. And all of us sort of reuse much of the work which is happening in many other parts of Google. Like you may have heard of things like Google Brain, TensorFlow. TensorFlow is something which is sort of a framework which others can use, and we are all using things like that.
So the work is going on TensorFlow over there?
No, the TensorFlow work is done entirely here.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. There's a very small part of Google which works on like the core infrastructure framework, and then there is large parts of Google which make use of such things.
Yeah.
So many of these teams are making use of underlying frameworks, but the framework itself is not where the interesting parts are. I mean, if you want to solve product problems, you need to decide what are the signals you want. How do you train? How do you keep this model? Those are bigger problems. If you take the capability like Smart Reply in Inbox. In Inbox, if someone sends a mail to you, you have an ability to do Smart Reply. Have you seen this? There are some choices which will come up. Those choices all come up because there have been machine learning models which have been built. They don't come up because you're using a great TensorFlow framework.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So the answer to you is that
so if somebody
pretty much all the teams there are doing a lot of applied machine intelligence. The core thing is done by a very, very small team in Mountain View.
So what kind of expertise you expect for the machine intelligence group there? Or is it the same, the core stuff?
Okay, so in the junior engineers thing, we expect capabilities around data structures and algorithms, basically. How well can you do things efficiently? When you're a bit more senior, we hope that you have used machine learning for many problems. You understand what are the trade-offs you need to make. You understand trade-offs around like performance, size, latency, all these things better, right? So you will be quizzed on how do you build these models, how do you keep modifying them, how much memory will they use, right? And in general in Google, we certainly appreciate people who have done this and shown that they can do it, and in the interviews be able to defend it well, rather than just have sort of bookish knowledge of how a particular system will work. So if you have a machine learning background, if you come in an interview, you will be asked specific things, and you will be asked a problem where you will need to apply that in some ways.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Let's start here and then we'll.
Hi, my name is Raghu. I'm from Shape Security, and I've been here for almost 20 years now. So I know you mentioned like headcount of the Bangalore division. So what percentage of that is locally sourced? How many people kind of moved back, and how many sort of subsequently, I mean, decided to stay on, and it's worked out well for them?
Yeah, so we have lots of junior engineers who come out of colleges, right? Either they did internship with us and they converted, or they're just coming fresh out of college and they have no exposure to Google. So we have some of those. We have some of them who have worked in companies, other companies there, and who have joined us. That is still a majority of them. At the senior level, we have people who have moved back from here to India, who and the proportion there is higher. While at the junior level, the proportion there locally is much higher. So on the office as a whole, I would say it's still predominantly like local. But we do have a lot of talent which has moved from here to there. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know. I actually don't know the exact percentages, but I know that these trends are true. Yeah.
From VMware. I've been here for 3 years, 2 years doing masters and 1 year working. So I might be like a junior engineer. So my question might be silly, but so in Google India for the junior engineers, so do you have something like a mentorship program? Because we have talent, but we lack experience. We have not worked on big systems, all kind of work. But yeah, if given mentorship, supported, we can learn and do it. So yeah, my question is like learning. What is the aspect of learning there?
Yeah, I mean the right answer to your thing is basically that in Google as a whole, we have a model of making junior people learn, and so what I'm going to say is not got anything with Google India. It's just Google as a whole. So what we do is when we get junior people, we basically get them started on some starter project, which is small but gets them into the systems, the whole code review process, understanding how to write code, which is conformant, and very soon you'll start being able to affect the production. So you will push some small features, right? But through this thing, you'll be immediately assigned a mentor when you join, and there will be a tech lead who might be other than the mentor, who will oversee your work. There might be some design which is written by someone which you will be implementing. There might be some things where you'll discuss with people, but in general, we have a fairly clear approach to this, that when we have TLs, when we have junior engineers, how do you organize these people such that the junior engineers come on board? Yeah, and we do the same thing both there and here. So there's nothing different about Google India there. We're generally looking for any levels, right? We're not controlling any of that. Yeah, someone, yeah.
Hello, my name is Nikhil. I work for Broadcom Limited, and I have been living in Bay Area for more than 7 years now. I want to highlight 2 points. So you mentioned one thing, connectivity. So I saw the Wi-Fi icon there. You also said something about how the mobiles and how Google wants to shape it. You just mentioned that line. But you never mentioned, is Google India trying to develop a Google hardware team? Because Google just came up with Pixel, right? Mobile handsets. Is there any plan in the future you trying to develop a team?
Yeah, so the question was around hardware and Google India and everything. So right now we have a hardware team here which is doing all of the heavy lifting of the work. The connectivity part which I mentioned there is, how many of you maybe have heard of this project called RailTel? RailTel's collaboration with Google. Probably some of you. So there is a company called RailTel in India, which is actually the arm of Indian Railways, which looks after. So what Indian Railways has done is they've put lots and lots of fiber under the railway tracks, right? So the connection is pretty intense. But at the end points in these stations, there is not enough connectivity. So Google basically went in and said that, we have Wi-Fi access points, we have a lot of networking knowledge, right? So we will put these access points at railway stations, so people can come in and basically they can access it's like a free Wi-Fi. It's like what Starbucks did here, right? And this is one way in which we are affecting connectivity. And the initial response has been amazing. Our goal is to do 100 stations, and I believe we have done about 50 or 60 of them already. And the usage there is phenomenal. There are people, if you browse online, you'll find reports by people saying that, and there are people who go to work, who go to the station in the morning for an hour, browse, and then go to work. So the station is actually teeming with people who are not traveling, right? But anyway, the best thing about the stations is that many people who go there can download stuff, can keep some information which they can consume through the journey, right? Which is a good model there. So we're doing something in the connectivity there. Are we in the business of doing low-cost phones in India? I don't think so.
Not the low cost, but still supporting the Pixel, like the Google launched.
Yeah, so Google launched Pixel. Google launched Pixel in India. In fact, if you go to India now, there is a very, very high chance that you will see a Google Pixel ad somewhere, even from the journey from the airport to your home. So there's a lot of marketing Google is doing there, but it's clearly for the highest end. I mean, it's literally just competing
On
with
engineering terms, you're not supporting it.
No. Yeah. I'm sorry. I wish the answer to many of your questions is yes and more positive. I'm just being very direct. Google, there is a small office, and we're just doing a limited set of things. Let's take a question from a woman folk first. Yeah, let's take it from her. Yeah.
My name is Priya. I work at Coursera. It's a startup in Mountain View, and I've been here in the US for 8 years. So I was quite surprised to know that Google India is only about 200 people. I interned in 2006 in Google India. It was probably about 100 then, around that. So I'm just curious to know what are the growth plans for the company in the next 2 years, 5 years? Do you plan to grow it more?
Yeah. So this is a question we get very frequently, right? And I will tell you that it's not like it's been like this. This is another growth curve of Google India. It's actually been a bit of this. And the reason is that we've had like sort of like an Eric Schmidt era, and then a Larry Page era, and now we're in the Sundar era. And some changes have happened across the way. And even during these eras, there have been movement of some projects, started there, or killed there, and moved here, and these things. So that led to some changes. But in general, there are two factors which have affected Bangalore growth overall. One is we hire a lot of junior people. Some of them may want to go to US and other places, right? So we continue to keep meeting all of our headcount needs, but some people move. And the second thing is when projects move, it's very hard to take all those people who are affected and just move them to all other existing projects. Often the projects move with the people. And you're probably well aware, I mean, Indians love to emigrate to developing countries. I'm probably looking at all of you here to develop countries, right? And that passion has led a lot of immigration. If every person we hired there stayed there, we would probably be like more than 1,000 people. And that is one of the reasons. And the other thing is the project moves there. But now we are again back up. I mean, for example, we were 280, I believe, in 2010 or 11. We fell to about 160 something, and now we are back to like 250. And now we have, I mean, now with the commitments for NBU, we think we are going to invest more in India to further markets there. Yeah. Yeah, this side. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Shilpi. I work for Swasta. There's a startup in Mountain View, and I've been here for around 4 years now. My question is, how would you compare the work-life balance in India to here?
Yeah, this comes up. Sorry, I should have covered it in the presentation. So this is how it works, okay? Again, if you're a junior engineer, you'll probably not interact with anyone anywhere else. No, please, it's like you don't need to stand. You'll probably not interact frequently at all with people in other parts of the world. If you're a more senior engineer where you're the TL of a particular technical lead of a particular team, you may interact with some senior people maybe once or 2 times a week. If it is with Mountain View or New York, it'll be often in your night times and their day times. But if the size of your group is bigger, you might interact in your morning and in their night. And we do have teams, for example, here, which work nights to work with India in their daytime, right? If you are a lead like me, the reality is that I have meetings in the night 3 out of 5 days because there are many decision makers here whom I want to know about, whom I want to talk with and understand how they're going. The other leads also have similar things, and we make trips, like I told you, every 3 months, and some of these people come down and we host them, we prepare. But again, you need to work out this work-life balance in other ways. I'm an early morning person. It doesn't help that I have these night meetings, but I'm usually before 8 a.m. in the office, but I try to get out somewhere around 5. So from 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m., it's no work time. So that is the way I work. But if you're not in that position of responsibility or authority, you probably have it much easier. No, I actually don't work on weekends most of the time, unless something comes up. In general, I mean, Google leaders are also advised not to do communications and things on weekends because there is enough research in psychology that if a leader works extra hard, it forces the people underneath to also match that type of working. So they've said that if leaders send out a mail in the weekend, it forces other people to also try to match and work and respond on the weekend. So we are in general barred from sending email on Saturday, Sundays. So if I want, for my own curiosity, I could work, but I should just keep it out of the books. But we recommend people, unless you're in the midst of an important deadline, don't bother with this.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. And This gentleman's been waiting in the back.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we will also have some time here, so we will chat. But let's try to.
Hi there. This is Sushish, and I pretty much do independent working. Like I saw all of your products here.
Okay.
Right? But I do not see anything which is going kind of cross-product or cross-platform, right? For example, let's say you are doing a specific product only for consumer-based, right? But if you see the users, right? I have been there in India, was specifically in Bangalore for 8 years. The user behavior and the mindsets, right? Little bit different than here. So use cases, right? How much percentage of use cases you are building in India specifically, or coming up use cases in India office, or it is more like driven from here? Or is there any product which is cross-platform, like for example, security, right? Or customer analytics, for example, right? 360-degree view of that. So what you are doing there?
Yeah, so for India-specific products, right? Like I said, we have started a group which is working on something. I can't really talk publicly about it because it is a bit of a stealth project which they're working on, which addresses sort of many sections of Indian society. The work in G Suite, which I talked about, right? That is sort of across. Like we try to talk to various other product teams. Like you can take something like Google Domains. We want to sell Google Domains to various companies. They come and they work with us. You wanted to give Google Voice to companies. They come and work with us. So there is a platform approach there, but the other teams are not platforms. I agree. Yeah. So again, sometimes to do platforms, right, you need lots of people and big teams. I mean, this Google G Suite team is a very, very big team. It's the largest team in Google Bangalore and Hyderabad. And there you have the luxury to do that. But in other teams, they are much smaller, so you cannot really do a platform approach there. And some of that happens here. No, not just Google India. Every location. So the question was about P&L. So P&L, there is no location-based approach. What they do is in Google we have things called product areas, and there are some product areas which have P&L and some which don't have. For example, even a big product area like Chrome is not a P&L area. But there are some other, P&L is profit and loss, sorry. Yeah, it's not a profit and loss calculation. And this is true for all sites, not just Google India. Like a Google Shanghai or a Google Beijing is not a profit and loss center. No, we don't do that either. No. We're not vertical space. Yeah. Let's do one more. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, my name's Prateek. I'm working at ThoughtSpot. I've been here for around 4 years. One of the problems that you're trying to solve is reaching out to the next billion set of people. And the target audience is the people in Southeast Asia. And you gave out a few problems that we face over there, poverty and things like that. How you can you elaborate a bit more on how are you attacking that problem? What exactly is Google doing to solve and reach out to this next set of billion people?
Yeah, I mean, Jay will probably be better at answering this. He's heading the NBU effort. So we have product managers who are trying to understand what type of use cases in these markets are worth addressing for scale. And we have a few projects which we are prototyping to see whether it addresses. So we do what are called trusted tester like releases to these sets of people. We see the feedback, we tweak the product, and we continue doing that. Unfortunately, I cannot talk about the details of such efforts. To be frank, even within Google, they are fairly secretive. No. There is a bunch of engineers building products, building actual things. Yeah, this is like 50 people efforts. It's not small. Yeah, but we are not at a point where we can talk about that. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was very open about many other projects, but this one I cannot. Are we done? We'll chat more here as well. I'm free to. But thanks a lot for coming. I hope my answers were informative to some extent. Feel free to reach out to Gerard if you're interested with your resumes, and feel free to really give it a good shot if you want to come into Google. It's well worth it. Right? Thank you.
Just a few items before we break for networking. Sorry. So we have a few recruiters here. They're in the back if you don't mind standing up and waving at the crowd. If you have any questions about Google opportunities or the interview process, please speak to them during the reception. We also have a ton of hot food in the back, so make sure you grab some before you leave. And just make sure you also grab your swag bags on the way out. Thank you for coming. Have a good night.